In this video, we'll be looking at an old classic, a Heathkit GR-78. What makes this radio special, at least to me, is that some years ago, I purchased this manual from the Heathkit company because I had a project in college where I had to prove my knowledge of electronics. And so I duplicated the main circuit board from this receiver, and I demonstrated it in class, for which I got an A. Now, what makes this receiver special and worthy of such effort was these four little red ceramic filters. Heathkit must have supplied a matched set of them because the selectivity of this radio is phenomenal. And ever since then, I had always wanted to buy one of these receivers. I even came so close to driving down to the nearest Heathkit store 200 miles away to try to buy one. But in the end, I was lured away by another piece of electronics, which I wanted even more. So now, almost 50 years later, I have the real deal. And it does not disappoint. It is also phenomenally sensitive, due in part to the tuned RF stage, although it's difficult to see all three sections of the tuning capacitor. But as lovely as it is, it also has certain disadvantages. The chief being that it was designed to run off of a battery, which is no longer in this radio, so I am now powering it from a lab supply. It takes 9.6 volts. Someone had left a 12-volt power connector on it, to which I tried to put a wall wart, only to find that either my wall wart is defective and produced a loud hum, or the radio really cannot stand running off 12 volts instead of 9.6. In any event, my first modification is going to be to take a little LM317 and make a precision 9.6 volt power supply, which I believe I can do with a 6.8K resistor and a 1K resistor. So when next you see this radio, it will have this power supply modification done. Of course, I will also replace the capacitors, which are of the earliest variety and therefore badly need replacing. They all have the smooth tops, which means that their seal is a rubber seal on the bottom, and organic rubber deteriorates over time. When I got this radio, I had very low hopes of it because I had bought two parts units off of eBay and neither one was advertised as operational. This one, the tuning cam was loose, and so you couldn't really tune stations. The band spread is also loose, which I have not even bothered to fix yet, because with this radio you do not want to use the band spread because it is a single section capacitor. It only adjusts the oscillator section. Therefore, as you tune the band spread further and further away from the station of interest, you lose a lot of sensitivity because antenna and RF stages are not also tracking. Here's one of my test stations, WBAP, and it is in pretty good shape after coming so far. It sounds like it may be as good as the Fisher AM80. And here's the classic country from San Antonio. Shows about a 4 on the meter. Doing pretty well on 550 KTSA. I've got some dial accuracy issues because it's not showing right on 550. But here's why I think the ceramic filters are pre-selected by Heathkit to be matched. I'm going to go over here on this tuning meter. As I go back and forth, I don't see individual peaking on that. Maybe one or two slight. But I think they've matched these filters very carefully. Now, the upper end of the dial is actually on the next band, band C, which kind of splits the broadcast band into two pieces at 1.3 megahertz. Not terribly convenient. But to demonstrate the selectivity, I've got a local there a distant there, and another kind of local there. Does appear to be kind of a double bounce on that peak, so it's definitely something I'll look into when I scan these filters on a Nano VNA. Definitely a little bit of a surprise, the 1660 from Waco, which has had signal problems in this area. So this is a darn sensitive unit, but I'm also getting that double bounce. Step number one, and this should be mandatory for any customer of yours if you want to avoid legal liability. A 3-wire power cord, and I'm going to put in an IEC connector on here. I got to remount this hole a little bit more to fit it in there. And I always add a 2 meg or a 2.2 meg resistor from the neutral to ground, not from the hot, but the neutral to ground. And this accomplishes a couple of things. Number one, you do now have a safety ground in case there's a ground fault. And particularly if you're going to interface this with other equipment, that's imperative. You really should not negotiate on safety with customers. You should always insist upon having it as safe as you can get. One thing I did discover is that the on-off switch on this radio works on the DC side, not the AC. Kind of a funky DC power supply in here that used an incandescent light bulb to drop 12 volts to 9 volts with a 47 ohm resistor. I'm still going to go ahead and just put in an LM317 circuit. That will allow me to do a couple of things. Number one, I can control the DC voltage much more precisely. Number two, I can place an additional input to it in case I want to put a battery in here, probably one of those 12-volt lead acid batteries if it will fit. The winding of this thing is 9.6 volts, which happens to be the target DC voltage. But when I rectify it, I should have more than enough overhead to operate an LM317. It's just the yellow leads out of the transformer. I took the AC powered version of this off the table for now because number one, I don't have an IEC connector readily at hand, and number two, the transformer in here does not have enough current to operate a DC power supply board. The people that sold me the radio nicely provided a new modern DC power plug at the end of a long wire. So I just installed it on the cabinet with a little piece of FR4 board, and I have placed a DC power supply of my own design to power the radio directly. So now, if I wanted to, I could still operate it off of a battery by taking another wire off of this board and placing a battery here on the left in this empty compartment. But for now, I have completely gotten the radio away from operating off the lab supply, and I should be able to do the rest of my checkout from here. Okay, I'm now operating completely off of a wall wart. Now, if you're going to do a wall wart with these, you have to do a linear one, and those are getting hard to find, but hopefully you'll have one in your junk kit somewhere. The other thing is, the AC option is off the table because this little transformer is not capable of providing enough current to operate the radio. Maybe because it was designed to trickle charge the battery, I don't know what, but for now I've just tied its leads off to a terminal block and just tacked them on there temporarily. Now, people that sold the radio had a modern DC connector on the end of a long wire, so I took a little piece of FR4 copper clad board and made a little adapter and put the modern DC connector right into the chassis where the old DC connector was. And my own power supply board, it's got AC input, and it's in case I find a transformer that can put out enough current. And I've also put extensive filtering on to keep it as quiet as possible. and it's about 20 millivolts of ripple and almost no high frequency stuff. So it ought to be pretty good for this radio. The sound is still distorted, and I think that's probably due to the fact that some of the aluminum electrolytics are swollen on top and have degraded. So my next step is to recap the radio. Then if it's still distorted, I'm going to have to go through the transistors and find them one at a time. So when I see you next, it'll have new caps. The main board flips out of the way when you take out 4 screws and 2 screws holding a transistor on a heat sink. There's then a shield piece of aluminum that you have to take off in order to access the top of the plug-in board, or whatever board they're using, whatever method they're using for the other vertical boards that hold the antenna, mixer, RF, and oscillator boards. I did this to access a couple of caps that you can't get to any other way. After I finish these, I'm going to go back to the main board and I'm going to replace their caps. It was necessary to take off the bottom shield in order to get to one screw because there was a standoff in an inconvenient location. This is my first view of this very complex assembly. It doesn't appear that these are plug-in. They only appear to be soldered 3 places. However, you'd have to disassemble the radio and take out this long shaft in order to pull the boards out after you desolder them. Certainly not something that you want to do unless there is a compelling reason. Although one band isn't working and I may end up having to dig into this assembly later. It's nicely labeled for when you want to do alignment. Both of these caps are now done. It's very tempting at this point to go in here and convert this incandescent dial lamp into LED, but I'll wait on that. I may want to do a little change to the circuit. Right now it's a spring-loaded temporary on, and I may want to make it a very low intensity constant on, and then when you push the spring-loaded switch, a high intensity, but I'll figure that out later. Okay, still distorted, so it's time to dig into the transistors. Probably when they tried to operate it off of 12 volts or possibly even higher, they damaged the thing. So it should be an easy matter to work backwards from the output transistors and try to find the ones that are distorted. One thing I will mention is that the radio does operate off of 12 volts. However, the signal strength meter does not. And it will peg and you won't be able to get any useful readings out of it if you try to run off 12 volts. Plus there's also this audio distortion, which means I'm probably looking at some bad transistors. So were the capacitors out of spec? Supposed to be 500, 738. Supposed to be 100, this one's actually in spec. Supposed to be 100, it's 200. Supposed to be 100, 178. Supposed to be 10, 17 and a half. Supposed to be 10, 26. Supposed to be 10, 45. And look at the ESR, 16 ohms. Supposed to be 10, 62. Supposed to be 10, 22. Supposed to be 2.2, 3.5. And look at that ESR. So what you're saying? More capacitor for the money. It's a higher value. No, what that means is that its self-resonant frequency is decreasing dramatically towards the real axis, and if it continues, it's going to turn into more of an inductor than it is a capacitor. All but one of these capacitors were bad, and that means all but one needed to be replaced.